Andrea Bailey Brown. When I say your name, it has to, do people say they can't just say Andrea? It's Andrea Bailey Brown.
Yes, I've been getting I have a dry cleaning place that I drop my stuff off, and she's like, "Your name, that should be my name. It could be a store, boutique."
It is
So
like
I've been getting
it's cool. It's funny because some people have to call me Allie Brown. It's not just Allie, it's Allie Brown. It's a thing,
yeah,
right? So that's
I
that's
I
how we
used to
think of
call you
you.
Allie Brown, but now I
Yeah.
can just call you Allie, so it's nice. Yeah,
Now we're on
for
Allie
sure.
Andrea terms. I'm so excited to finally have you on, and for a few reasons. One, I mean, probably three reasons. One is your area of expertise and experience, I think, is something that women should really listen to right now when they're thinking about moves with their business or their investments. Two is I just love talking with you, and I always get ideas talking with you. And I love getting to know my clients and members more on this show because, usually when we're sitting together, we're talking about a multitude of things. And now I get to really ask these questions and learn more about you. And then third, I don't think even the women in the trust really understand really fully about how much you do and the wisdom you have to share. So I'm excited for the other members to hear this. Also, um, first of all, let me think. Well, do you want to give a bit of a snapshot of, who you are and what the state of the union kind of Andrea Bailey Brown, and then we'll go back maybe into your career and how this all started.
Started. Absolutely. So yeah. Um, so currently I own I'm a multi-unit franchise owner with Jiffy Lube, the oil change brand. And I also have a franchise agency, which is Bailey Brown, the franchise agency. And we help people to buy, build, or grow their franchise. And sometimes we help people that they already have, they are business owners, but they're actually just looking to expand maybe in second, third businesses. They have extra cash. They're not sure what to do with it. And they're
Hmm.
looking at different ways that they can invest. So I, in a basic way, help them to find businesses to buy in the franchise world or to expand through franchise ownership. So that's what I'm doing these days.
Yeah. And it's like this whole other world that I knew existed, but then, I'd say maybe about 12, 13 years ago, I had the opportunity to attend a conference with a friend, and it just opened my eyes to this. It's a whole other world and of opportunities, of regulation. I mean, it truly is a whole other way of doing business. But now, how did you get started with this though? Go back. Did you buy a franchise? Is that how this all started?
Yeah, I think that's how it started. So I was looking at my now husband and I at the time we were dating, and we were looking at ways to bridge the gap because he was living in the US in Florida. I'm living in Canada, and we're like the long distance was nice for a while, and then you're like, okay, let's get serious here. Who's going to do the moving? So we talked about it, and we felt it was better for him to move here. And the only thing we
How
had
did you
was
talk
that,
him into Canada? I'm sorry,
you know what?
from Florida. How did you talk
Yeah,
him into Canada?
that's a great question. I think the main thing is it makes sense for some men when it's about business ownership. If you've always wanted to do a business, would be a great place to do it here. And I was already living here. So that's why he said, why not? Let's look into it. So we were looking at ways to really bridge the gap. And we wanted to do that through business ownership. And we just felt that franchising was a faster way to go than for us trying to start something from scratch and start a business.
So
He
you had a
was
clean
leaving.
slate. You weren't like it has to be in this category. You were just like
No.
we're open-minded. We're going to look at all opportunities.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. And plus, when he was well paid working with American Airlines, basically doing aircraft mechanic engineering stuff and keeping the planes in the sky is what I say to people. And so, if he was going to leave that, and in that time, people really just think about a salary and it's great. So I'm like, okay, you have to do something that would also make sense and something that was fast. And so we looked at a few different franchises, and then we landed on on Jiffy Lube, it was sort of one of those was what they call serendipity, where it just kind of worked. Met the founder, the owner, and it just all was coming into play. And we just thought, you know what, it is let's go for it. So that was where it really all
And,
started.
and why did you choose? Because, okay, you meet Andrea Bailey Brown, as you can all see, she's stunningly beautiful and like well spoken and educated. And then I hear Jiffy Lube, and it just didn't, in my limited mind, it
Yeah,
did not match up for me. I'm
it
like,
didn't
what? That has
match.
to be the most unsexy, beautiful business I could think of. Like oil change,
Yeah.
like greasy men. Maybe you like that. I don't know. So tell me, tell me what the appeal was for Jiffy
Yeah.
Lube. Like, just so we understand when you're looking at a franchise.
Yes, and I think excellent question, Ali, because for me, what I've always looked at what's a great business to get into, and is this a business that I can operate? Is this a business that will be profitable? A business that I could potentially sell one day. So those were the criteria for us. I have to also say my husband has always been interested in the automotive world. So that also drove it, because when I was working as a teacher when he moved to Canada, and I was also running a direct selling business, selling jewelry, women's jewelry, and some men's product too, but 90% for women. And we just knew that with that business model, I had grown a team to about 500 women, became a sales director. We knew there was no real room in that for him to do something like full time. Did he support me like going to conferences? Definitely. When I had presentations and shows that was out of the city or needed, help driving an hour and a half away, absolutely. But for him to be a part of it and have a main play and feel purposeful, it wasn't going to be in that. So we're looking at something that was going to be a good fit for him. And so
Yeah.
the automotive world was also part of it. I mean, we did look into food as well, that I can remember right now, but I think that's why we landed on that. But you
That makes
used a
sense. I
really good,
forgot what you just said about his career. That makes sense. He's hands-on
yes,
kind of guy and automotive fixing thing, that makes sense. Okay.
yes, made sense. But you used a really great term that it's kind of unsexy and it doesn't always match. But I think what I find sexy are businesses that are profitable, that you can make money from. So I quickly saw that, yes, it was sexy for me because it was a profitable business.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think as I get older too, that would seem sexier to me now too. I'll be like, awesome,
Yes.
let me buy some Jiffy Lubes and then I don't have to like
Yes.
be Allie Brown, right?
Yes.
Which is part of the appeal. Actually, we should talk about that, like having a business where you don't have to be so personally attached as many women are to their businesses. But
Yes. To
but
their
going back, so
brands.
you buy one Jiffy Lube and then what happens?
So yeah, we bought one Jiffy Lube and I thought it was going to be mostly him, like 80-90% him, and then I would just be in the background. But then I started going, attending. The main thing was that my name was on the entire paperwork and the business was bought through me because I was the Canadian citizen. And so the banks qualified and did everything based on what I was doing. So my name was on the entire purchase. And I would go to the meetings and things and I would speak up and I thought, hey, I was in direct sales. I know a lot about business. It may not have been the oil change, but a lot of things you can really transfer from your past knowledge, and you can definitely bring it to any other business that you're doing. And so I started to speak up. I would say, oh, I would do this with the uniforms. I think we should, look at this for ads. Social media is the place to be. And so my ideas were coming up over and over.
Were they
And I
listening or
felt
were they like,
they weren't always like quick to jump on new things, but I think the founder really trusted me. And he would be like, you really know what you're talking about. And so because of speaking up, when we wanted a second location, he basically said yes to that. And the
mm,
team at the head office said yes, because we proved that we knew how to improve sales, grow profits. And we basically had our first location in Calgary. And then at that time that we really increased the ticket per vehicle. they were like, "What are they doing down there?" They actually sent someone from the corporate office to check to make sure we were only selling oil and nothing
Okay.
else.
Nothing in the back room that was off
Not
market, you know?
Yes, exactly.
I'm
So
sure.
that's when they yeah, when
Yeah.
they really noticed that we knew exactly what we were doing.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Okay, so then there's 2 locations, and then what?
So yeah, we had our and that at that time, I decided that once we were getting the second location, I realized it was time for me to resign from teaching. So I kept my teaching going because we were doing it. We were growing the business, and sometimes you're not sure how a company is going to go. We were happy that they didn't require for us to leave our jobs and to quit our jobs to buy the business. Some franchises do. The bigger
Mm,
brands would say, like, you cannot be, for example, trying to buy a McDonald's and do it on the side, or buy a
okay.
Popeyes and it's your side thing. They won't let that in the big, they won't let that happen. So we were quite happy that they were like, yeah, do your thing, and then when it's time. So at that time, we I resigned from teaching, and then really started to focus on the business full time, and just helping and figuring out another path.
Okay. And then fast forward, jump forward to, how many locations do you own now and what is your ownership status?
Yeah, so throughout the time, we've owned 5 different locations, and we don't own all 5 now together, because what we've done is we basically pay attention to the market. And part of being in business is knowing when to buy, when to sell, when to exit. So we've just basically looked at that. So we've sold off some of our locations. We've invested in others. So that's what we've done over time. So we've sold off and kept a couple of our locations now. My ownership in it is the beauty about franchising. And if you're in really great brands, you don't need to be there all the time. So that's how I've been able to build Bailey Brown, the franchise agency, and do all the other things that I do, travel to the trust, go to conferences, because we have managers in every location, and we've always built it on that. The beauty of franchising is from day one, we actually started with 5 employees. Where when people start companies on their own, they really start the solopreneur route. They
Mm,
trudge along, they try to do everything on their own. And I know sometimes people think, well, it's good to learn how to be an admin and how to be the salesperson. But in the franchise model, you quickly learn how to run a team, how to put systems in place. So from day one, we had a manager and assistant managers. And so we've been able to step aside from the business a lot, because we have good managers.
okay. So let's stay with the franchises for a minute, and then let's consider if someone's listening to this saying, you know what, I've never actually thought of buying a franchise, but maybe I should think about it. Tell us more about like the opportunities out there, who this is good for, who it's not good for. Like if you were consulting someone who came in your door to look at a franchise, like what are some of the questions you ask them, and what are the realities too? What are there may be, for example, I have this grass is greener escapist fantasy with every business I own, right? Like, you start it, it's amazing. And then, every business, there's critical issues and things you have to be dealing with. And then I look at, where was I the other day? I was with the kids and we saw like a Kona ice truck. And I had a vision of us just driving around the Kona ice truck, having fun, selling. You sell cones of ice with flavoring for like $4. It looks like a great profit, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, Jordan could do the money, Maddie could do the cones. I'll drive it,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, maybe we'll just drive this Kona ice truck out into the sunset.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, ugh, but then, every business, of course. And it was a great lesson for the kids. We sat and went to the website and downloaded the kit because I wanted them to learn. I'm like, all right, here's what the truck would cost. Here's what it would look
Yes.
like. I'm like, but look, we're going to have no free time anymore in the weekends. We're going to have to
True.
find some people to do that. So, every business, there's pros and cons. So talk to us about what we would think through, if this even is appealing, maybe looking at franchises.
Yeah, that's really great. Wow, your twins are so happy to have you, Jordan and Maddie. Like, this is amazing. They're gonna learn so much about business ownership from like they're learning already, which is amazing. It was great when I came to when I to your event. I think it was iconic.
Yeah, and they were
And they
little
were
then.
working at the tables and handing out stuff and like I don't know, really awesome. But I would say that so when clients come to us and they're looking at different brands, we actually have people go through an assessment, and the assessment creates like an 11-page report to figure out what you're good at, what the lifestyle is, where do you see yourself managing a team of, you know, 2 to 3, 3 to or 2 to 5 is good, or do you want to own something like a restaurant where on average you're managing 30 to 35 people, right? So we're looking at everything through the assessment. Another thing is we let people realize that they're not coming in as a blank slate. It's the biggest myth that people have. If you've been a teacher all your life, if you've done accounting, you're like, what else can I do? You'll hear grown people say, I don't know what else I'll do. I've done this for so long.
Right.
So we really help people to take a look at what they've done in their past and what all those skills that they've developed can lead to and what other businesses to look into. So that's the first major assessment that we do. All our clients really love it and they learn so much, and they say, oh my God, this is exactly who I am. And are you an achiever, a belonger, societal? Because those things will help us decide how we make decisions. Most people have done some sort of a personality assessment where it's like, are you red or blue? They've done the Myers-Briggs, but in terms of a business matching, many people have not done that. So that's really where we start with our clients. Another thing is like, if you're interested in owning, let's say, an education business. And before I started in this, I was a teacher and I never really thought of education as a business because
Mm,
we mostly have public schools and private schools here in Canada, but never like, can you start an education business? But learning places like, there's the Kumons out there and tutor doctor, those are all in the education field.
mhm.
But I had a client that I was showing something in education to, and she used to be a teacher. When we really looked at it, I said to her, what we realized was most of that work was going to be from 3 until like 8 o'clock, because when our students are in class all day, and she'd be running an evening business. And she's like, I don't think that's what I really want to do. So if you think about realtors, most of the time it's evening and weekends and they're always busy. So we look through the entire thing and we show what's called an ideal, what's a day like, a day in the life of the franchisee. What would
Mm.
you really be doing? So just like you played out what's looking really sexy and we're just going to be giving out cones, but you may be having to go to a lot of festivals because that's where the majority of people are. And do you want to do that every weekend, or do you want something is also another thing, in depending where you live, it can be very seasonal.
Right.
In Arizona, that might work. But when you're looking at a business, does it work in your area based where you live, or is it going to be some sort of a seasonal business? And
Mhm.
can you manage on those, like when many people are not outside and it's cold, etc.? So we really take people through, this is the full look of what owning this franchise is like. And the part that I love the most for my clients is actually having them speak to existing franchisees. And we call that validation. Let's validate by hearing from someone that's in it, and let's hear the truth about how that is working.
Mm. Have you ever
Yeah.
had someone make or about to walk into a real mismatch and you saved them? Well, like the education woman sounded like, right? When she said, when she real that's something she hadn't even thought of. Like, gosh, you're right.
Mhm.
3 to 9 or probably by the time you lock the doors and all that and get out of there,
Absolutely.
right? And deal with anything. So, you know, do you think a lot of people make mistakes or jump too quickly into different models?
I do think so. I've seen it happen. Like once they really realize the reality of the business, they haven't done proper validation. Like before we invested in Jiffy Lube, even as good as it sounded, we went around and we drove and spoke to different owners. We looked at it. what's the best thing, what are the challenges, what's the reality, what
Mhm.
are the busy days, what are the busy times. Like, because I live here in Canada, we have all four seasons where I am at. So I thought, oh yeah, the busy season is going to be winter because it's cold and you need your tires fixed and you know to be safe. And we found out it was actually the summer was the busy time because everyone's on the road. They're driving and exploring all
Mm.
of Canada. They're going to see families. And so what you really think the business is and the reality is two different things. So you really need to be talking to actual people in that business, because people have this idolize the idea of ownership, but they don't know what the reality is. So
Mm. So what are
yeah.
this is for me. What 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 are some of is there any like magical franchise that that's really hands off that you don't have to be involved in? I mean, tell me about some of those opportunities.
Yeah, so in the business we call them, we have a couple words for them. It's called like semi-absentee or passive ownership. So it's more hands-off. Now, after we've built our businesses, they have become very passive for both me and my husband. We've started other things, but they didn't start off passive. So here's the trick though, I find with for many people is if you want to be more hands off, like some of the restaurant brands, they have a management team that comes in and manage the entire brand. Hotel
Mm.
brands as well. I have a couple friends who own hotels. One own like 7 hotels. One is, I have about two or three. And it's a whole management team, from the general manager to the restaurant is rented by someone else. And they're
Mm.
very much hands off. They just get a report. But you have to also have a lot of money to invest in those
Those are
brands,
big
where
investments, yeah, I
those
would
are big
imagine.
investments, so we are
Yeah.
not doing any of the management part of it. The
Mhm.
smaller brands, like in, senior care, home services, those can be very lucrative, but you have to make sure that in the beginning you at least learn about the business and then get someone else to run it. So if you can pay someone a good like a general manager to operate the company, you definitely can. So that's another thing that I show my clients, like if they're interested in semi absentee, more passive, we only look at those brands and we get meetings with the franchisors to say, okay, my client, this is how much they want to be in it, and they'll say, okay, this is what they need to do, how much the
Mm.
investment is. And so we really consider some of those, but they absolutely do exist. It may not be day one because it's your major investment. You may want to go show up to the training, learn about it, and get the person who's going to be running the business with you at those, at the training, so that you can hand it off. You can hand
Yeah.
it off to them
I mean,
so
'cause
that you're not
management is
in there.
so important. I just went
Mhm.
to a location, and I'm okay if they hear this and know it. It was a Dry Bar, which I'm a big fan
Mm,
of, and I went to a different location. I won't mention the location as when I was traveling. And I found, I'd gone there for years and I knew I'm like, something's different. This is not the same experience it was.
mhm.
And, you start talking to people, when you ask questions, you find things out. I'm like, oh, has there been any
Yes.
change in the owner? I'm getting my hair washed. I'm just chit chatting. Turns out, someone bought this. They said, oh, it was this woman who just kind of thought this could be a side thing. And now that she
Mm,
didn't realize how much work it's going to be. And, you could tell. And then, I was reticent to go back, and then a year goes by, and man, the place is a machine now. I'm like, what happened? They're like, oh, they brought in like I don't know if she brought it in or maybe the corporate
yeah.
said we got to get a team in there who knows what they're doing. I don't know, but you could tell the difference.
Yes.
Night and day. The place was packed. You could tell they were making money. They had great stylists. I had a great experience. And so, yeah, it is. I'm guessing she may have thought that it was more hands off than
Yes.
it really was. Um, as far as the last question about opportunities, if someone is listening to this right now and thinking, oh, maybe I should look into this, what's a realistic amount you should have ready to invest in a decent opportunity? Not some piddly thing.
Yeah. I would say you should have at least, it would be nice to have like 100,000 would be great. 50, like 100,000 minimum. Because there are options available. I like using OPM, other people's money. So to invest in my franchises, I use the bank and they funded most of it. So that was great. So you
Mm,
can definitely, there's in the US, I know there are the SBA loans. Some people use their 401ks, there's IRA rollovers. So there are so many different lending options as well. So the main thing is that you don't have to carry it all on your own, which is the great thing about franchising. The banks, they love franchising because they have historical data. It has been proven. How are these dry bars operating? So if you're going to
hmm
be buying location number 101, they already have 100 other locations. So they're more likely to help you than someone who's coming in like, I have this idea, I've never done it before. So
right.
that's the great thing with the franchising world is the funding. The banks are quicker to give you funding. There's some banks where they already have relationships to say, if you're coming to buy a dry bar, go and speak to this person because they've done all the deals. Or if you're buying a Jiffy Lube like we
Mm,
did, they would say, speak to this person already because they've done all the Jiffy
it's
Lube deals,
proven.
McDonald's. So
Yeah.
I would say if you're looking at going it using the bank, then having something as a deposit, a good 100,000, 50 to 100 is really, you can actually do it that way. It is more than enough to start with. When you're making bigger deals, like I have clients that want to do multi-unit purchases, then definitely like a quarter of a million, 500,000 is what you would need if you're looking at buying out entire cities and things like that. Then definitely you need more of an investment.
Okay. Anything, and you can name names or not name names, but anything we should definitely stay away from right now as far as trends or brands or just things that are like, that's probably on the way out or whatever you think you could share.
Yeah, I one of the thing is that right now, believe it or not, like if you're not well funded, then getting into bricks and mortar type franchises, it's going to be hard. We met with someone today who was one of the VP of operations of a franchise brand. And they're saying some of the brands, even as good as they are, it will take 2 years for it to run, for you to get a profit. And I'm seeing that mostly with bricks and mortar business,
Mm,
because if just think about just the building alone, getting it up and going, you're going to need a minimum like 350 to 500,000, some, just to get the building up. And then, you have to make sure it is designed the way the franchisor wants it. So in those businesses, like if you're going to go into bricks and mortar, be ready. Don't just go in with the exact amount that you need. Make sure you
mm,
also have working capital because you're not going to be making money day one when something is brand new and no one knows your name and knows that you're even there. So we bought locations that are existing from other owners, and we've built brand new from the ground up. And it was exciting to have a fresh building. It's nice and new, but I'm going to be honest, it was a lot scarier with the brand new, zero sales, zero customer
hmm
franchise. You get to put your own stamp on it, but it's a whole other feeling where nobody even knows the business is there. So I would
mm,
say if stay away from anything that requires a lot of investment if you are not fully funded and you're not ready to pay your employees and carry that maybe for a year or two before you're really
yeah.
seeing any profit. And the last thing I would say, Ali, is buying a business is not the same as getting a job where every 2 weeks you're guaranteed your salary. It's a different world. You're taking a risk and you may not make any money for the first 6 months sometimes as the business is growing and getting known. So
Yeah.
that's what I would
And I
say.
think we need to remember that, especially, I mean, those of us who have run businesses for years, we know that about our business, but sometimes the franchise, you wonder if it looks so proven and instant
Hmm.
and ready. And that's the dream, right? You just plug into their
Yes.
formula for success, right? But it's a reality check that some of these are a very long game, especially brick and mortar. So thank
Bricks
you
and mortar. Yeah.
for
Much
reminding me
longer
that.
game.
Okay. All right.
Hmm.
So let's flip gears now. And I know that you've also, in the last few years, moved into helping women and men who have their own businesses or business ideas, turn them into a franchise or,
Yes.
at least research. And, I mean, 'cause if you want to technically start franchising your business, I know it's a whole other game, right? It involves like
Mhm.
regulatory agencies. You have to be super careful about what you promise and don't promise. It's a lot different than opening a few other locations on your own or even licensing. There's differences. Actually, why don't we start with the difference between licensing an idea and then creating a franchise of your business?
Right. So they're very so when you're licensing, the best way to look at it is you're just giving someone's permission to use your name, but you don't have to provide any sort of products and support for them so much. Sometimes you can look at the hotel brands when you just have like, the Marriott name on there. So that's more sometimes those are like the licensing. Another way is when like say the NBA teams up with McDonald's. So they're just putting their name on the cups. You're just licensing, you're getting permission to use that name, but McDonald's is not guaranteed to provide the NBA with food or anything. They're just saying you can use our
Right.
name.
You can
Um,
no
you know,
license IP though, right? Like if you have a
yes,
program or course and it can go beyond a name, right? Like,
yes.
content or here's my workshop. You can go teach it. That's where get confused. Like, where do you draw the line with the franchise versus licensing, right?
Yeah. So, sometimes I have a lawyer that I always kind of check in on that with, like to see what's some of the main difference. Some people like licensing better because it's shorter. You don't have to guarantee all the things like you do in a franchise system, where you have to make sure all the rules and you have to provide suppliers and that. So some companies prefer to go with the franchising or licensing because it's shorter, it's less expensive as well. But you still need they're very close. You still need to have some sort of clarity on the two if you're going to choose to go licensing versus franchising, and that's where the
Mm,
legal side comes in. And we work with a lawyer just to make sure our clients are clear on which way is the best way to go for them and for their brands.
okay. Are there any
Yeah.
litmus tests that instantly let you know? Like someone told me once that, for example, if you get into physical territories, then that's absolutely franchising versus licensing. Is that true? I don't even know.
Yeah, that would be a good test. Yeah. If you're
Okay.
into a physical location, a physical territory, then definitely that would be better for you to go into the franchising model on that. So that's what I would
Okay.
say.
Okay.
Mhm.
And what would be a good way to determine if we have like a business that could be franchised?
Yeah, I think what I look at is there's a few things. Number one, do you have an operation system already? Is this something that has been repeated over and over that you can use? Can you train other people on your system? There's so many of us, if you've started like as a solopreneur, everything lives in your head. But you have to think, can I train someone else? If I wasn't there, train them and they could really run this business. And of course I always look at profitability. The business financially successful? Because would you even buy your own business? There are some people who just they don't even sell their companies, they just close it down, right? So it's like, would I even buy my own company as it stands right now? So the financials are a big part. Every client that I work with, that's where they really want to get to. Is this
Mm,
making any money? How much money can I make? How soon can I make money? So people are very interested in their return on investment. So we have to make sure that there is a good return on investment for them. So checking if your business is financially viable, that it can support someone buying this company and starting it. So
mm, okay.
those are some of the things I would really think about.
All right. Anything else we should know about franchising in general on either side? What do you wish people
Um,
knew?
Yeah, I really wish people knew that this is a great method for expansion. So many entrepreneurs, they start their business, they may have one location, whether it's a service business or a bricks and mortar. You have a location, you have a second, a third. And then you're looking at expanding and you're like, oh my gosh, it's so expensive. I just can't imagine like having to open another one, having to get like the financing. How am I going to finance a fourth, fifth location? And while they're thinking about that, it may be faster to franchise their business, have somebody else take on the risk, because when you're a franchisee, you're taking on the risk of going to the bank, of getting the extra money, of making sure you have employees. So why not do that, and sell your IP, sell your concept to someone else, and in return you get what's called royalties, and royalties are a lifetime for as long as they own the franchise. So I've been paying royalties for about 16 years now since I own my franchise, but it's the best decision I've made. So I would say, instead of struggling to expand on your own, really just turn your business into a franchise and then get other people to take the risk. They're the ones going to the bank, and you can sell your IP, sell your concept,
Yeah.
to other people. So it's a fast way of expansion that people really just don't think about. And there's, a lot of people are struggling on their own, really saying, how am I going to grow this business? And I would say franchising is a great option for people.
And there's a lot of big companies that decide to franchise because it is the fastest model for growth, right?
Yes.
They'll start to grow a chain. And actually, this is another good example with Dry Bar. And I don't know all the steps that happened in their process, but I know there was a point that they started to franchise, and then they pulled back, and then they pulled in like some VC, and then all I know is there were suddenly franchises again. So a lot of companies will go to that model because of fast growth. When you look at something like Orange Theory, we had Ellen Latham, the co-founder,
Yeah.
at our very first meeting of the trust. And a lot of people don't know it was
Yes.
her workout that these guys heard about through their wives. And she pulled them in and said, hey, I know this is your jam and you got to come take this workout. I think this could be a thing. And they built it with a franchise model. At one point it was the fastest growing in the world. That was a while ago, but
Yes.
it was an exciting story and really cool to hear. So this is awesome. I have to, something I've been circling the entire time, which caught my eye, I forgot right before the interview. So you're a facilitator and speaker for a Lego program. Tell me this. Okay. What is Lego Serious Play? What is that?
Yeah. You know what? Lego Serious Play was so awesome. I found it when I was doing my MBA at Royal Roads University, and they brought in, I'm like, that they were going to bring in Lego. I'm like, what can this be? We're MBA students,
Yeah.
Um, and doing an executive MBA, you have
Yeah. You're like,
people.
what's this clownery? What is this?
Yeah, what is this? So once it came in, it basically was just using Legos that your kids play with to really build out ideas and to solve problems. So that's instead of so you're just thinking with the bricks. You're using your hands to build something. Like, what do you envision? What do we see on our team? So we use it for teamwork. We use it when you're trying to grow and expand. So we just use the bricks, and everyone speaks when they have the bricks here. So I first discovered it when I was working on my MBA. And then once I was done, I went and got certified. And I just really love it's a new way of thinking. Everyone participates with their hand building, and then they talk about what they've built. So I really found it working on my master's in business. And so I
That's
brought
so
it back.
cool. Do you still do
Yeah.
that if people want to bring you in to facilitate that?
Yes. I do it ever so often. I don't advertise a lot that I do it.
Yeah.
But like we were doing team strategy about a month ago, and I brought it in and I surprised them, and they're like, wow. And they were enjoying working with their hands, building out what the future of our company looks like. What do we see for our clients? And so everyone was building, and just so many amazing ideas come from playing with your hands and playing with the bricks.
Oh my
So I've
gosh.
yeah, it's been used at the UN. I brought it into schools. I've done it's been really, really neat. Once my franchising stuff is now kind of is taken off a lot, I don't do as much of my Lego work,
Yeah.
but it's
You
fascinating.
should come do one for the
Fascinating.
trust for us. I want to talk to you about that. That would be cool.
Sure. It would be
Just
really, really neat.
creative exercise to get out of the overthinking,
Yes.
right?
Would
and
be, yeah,
and
so
when you
cool.
get your hands involved, it's a whole, it just rewires the brain. You start thinking differently when you're using your
Yes.
hands. And
Oh, it's one of the coolest. I mean, I did my MBA. Of course, I studied, corporate taxes. I did all of that, but that really stood out. So I learned about that when I was working on my MBA. They brought that in. I was like, fascinating, and it just
yeah.
really stood out.
Oh, that is
Yeah.
cool. All right.
Hmm.
So first of all, where can people find you, follow you? Give us the whole scoop before I ask my last questions.
Yeah, so they can find me. I'm on Instagram under Bailey Brown Consulting. They can also find us just on our website, bbfranchiseagency.com. And we're also on LinkedIn, and that's the main place where we hang out, LinkedIn, and then on Instagram
And
as well.
you're on IG a lot. You're putting me to shame. I'm like, I got to keep up with you. You're doing stories all the time. You're looking good. She's like, I'm looking good again today. You look good. I'm like, she's just always looking good and doing stuff. And
Yeah.
it's good. It's good. It's good traction. It's very inspiring. So I'll get on and then
Okay.
I'm off and then I'm
And
on
then
and off.
no, your stuff is super cool. I like following you too.
When I get on, I'm doing a lot more personal stuff, which people love now. I'm posting
Yes.
more with the kids and stuff like that, which is, it's hard to remember sometimes. Sometimes I'll be out like enjoying something and then I feel pressured, right? I'm like, oh, I should get a quick
Yeah.
picture. And then, even just a quick picture is always worth it though, because it
Yes.
makes a memory for me as well. And then sharing it, people just seem to love it. And yeah, I still like IG. That's kind of my happy place.
Yes.
Um, so you're very connected, Andrea. When I met you and you came into kind of my world several years ago, I know you already, you were doing tremendously well in your businesses and you're going to conferences all the time. I'm going to guess you've been part of, many different types of groups and
Mhm.
organizations. What drew you to the trust and why do you stay?
Um, I would definitely say what drew me to the trust. I just I'd worked with you one on one before, so I've been in your network, and I've attended a few different um events that you've had. I'm trying to remember Iconic. I think I attended Iconic. And so that was good. So I was able to stay in that in the network. But then the trust, I was like, I needed something that's a little bit more elevated, with a different mixture of women that really understand business and like have real business conversation and growth conversations. And so I love just the variety that people from different industries, different parts of the world, and really, amazing women that are just doing great in their own world, in their industry. So that's what drew me to the trust. And also, I think having worked with you one on one in the past, I felt like you're very good at getting things right away. Like just nailing it, figuring it out. You don't have to circle around the block 20 times. But so I love the speed that you can just pick up on things and what works. So that was
Hmm.
me to the trust.
Awesome. I love that. And thank you. And what is the reward in all of this for you? All this work you do and everything you have
Yeah.
created and continue to do.
I really think the reward for me is to live the life that I really want, to live life on my terms. Having started my world as a teacher in a classroom, showing up from 8 to 3:30, coming home, I feel that you get so trapped, like you don't realize there's another world outside of it, and it's almost that you're told, like, if you venture out of this world, you're not going to make it. You will not survive. There's nothing outside of this profession that you've gotten into. So for me, the reward is that I got out, I resigned from teaching, and I'm thriving. And so for me now is to truly live life on my own terms, live life the way I really want to dive deeper into business. The reward is to travel when we want to, that I don't have to wait for a Christmas break or a summer break. So I just feel like ultimately it's to live the life that I really want to with my husband and with my family. and to be able to help in a different way now, outside of the great outfits and the purses and all of that, which I still love. No shame there.
Yep, always
You'll
looking
still
pulled together and having
Yes.
fun.
You'll still see me with great purses and outfits, but I think outside of that is to also be able to help my family. If my mom needs to fly with us wherever in the world, we can take care of it. So I think that's also now you can really help the rest of my family and just
Mm.
not feel any pressure doing any of that.
Was it you that brought your mom to an event?
Yes. She was
I
I brought her to were we in Scottsdale? Yeah, I
I
brought her.
think.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, no, that was you, that's right.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah, so that was really, really good to be able to
yeah,
do that now.
totally. That's what
Mhm.
it's all about, right? I mean,
Yes.
it's so good to have that freedom and ability to do that. Well, Andrea,
Yes.
thank you so much. This was great, and my mind's already kind of spinning like, "Oh, maybe I should look into some ideas." And I know that you're gonna be joining us at the fall meeting, which is coming up
Yes.
quick, and then we're going to be talking about this with many of the members. Everyone's in a bit of a transition right now. Even if their business is solid and going well, they're looking at, okay, what other options should I be looking at right now? What should I do with my money? Kind of hedge my bets, maybe put my
Yes.
eggs in some different baskets. And I think we're going to have a great discussion around this on both ends, investing in another model or taking our own model and using that to elevate to a whole new level of revenue. That's really enticing
Yes.
for a lot of
Well,
people.
I'm excited about that, going to, seeing you very soon. Um, it's
Yeah.
next month already,
It,
right?
it's
Yeah.
coming up quick.
It's
Yeah.
coming
I
up
think the
quickly.
show will get up, I think, right before it. So if you're listening right now or watching and you want to join us, jointhetrust.org. Please reach out. We may have time to get you in. If you run a business that generates over $1 million annually in revenues, please reach out. We would love to talk with you. Join this incredible group of women who are gathering here. The next meeting is here in Scottsdale, September, my cheat sheet, 17th and 18th, here in Scottsdale. All right. Okay. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Allie. Bye-bye.
Bye.